What's up, guys? Welcome back to another daily Bible reading snapshot. Today we're finishing the book of Deuteronomy, and we get something in chapter 33 that looks a lot like Genesis chapter 49, and you might know that as the time Jacob blessed his sons. The 12 tribes of Israel were just 12 men at that point, and Jacob blessed them and gave some prophecy about them. Now, Deuteronomy 33 is very similar, but instead of it being Jacob blessing his sons, it's Moses blessing the 12 tribes of Israel. So that's what we get here, and what you need to notice is he addresses all these tribes and says a lot of things about them. Some of it's prophecy, others of it is promises that God has for these tribes, others of it reflects the character that these tribes are already developing, but all of it ends with chapter 33 verse 29, where it says, "Happy are you, O Israel, who is like you, a people saved by the Lord." Now, at the time, was there any nation among all the nations that was saved like the people of Israel were saved? The answer is no. They were unique in that. And that was impressive and amazing, and it was something they were supposed to remember, not for their own boasting about themselves. If you remember earlier in the book, it said that they weren't supposed to think that they got the land and came into the land because they earned God's love. They were supposed to think God chose to love us despite what we've done, and Moses reminds them of all the bad things they had done. It's not that they were more righteous than everybody else. That's not why God loved them. God loved them because God chose to love them. And here, the summary statement, it feels like, of this entire book is there anybody like the Israelites here? Is anybody loved by God like this? And the answer at the time is there's nobody loved like God no one loved by God like these people. So, the point is, they are supposed to enter this land and serve God with their whole heart. And that seems like that was probably the end of the words of Moses, because in chapter 34, it talks about Moses' death. So this kind of creates some problems, and some people wonder, okay, well, I thought Moses wrote the whole law. Well, it seems like maybe he didn't write this part. I suppose it's possible, but I don't think it's necessary for us to look at this and say, well, Moses wrote about his death before it happened. Maybe it did. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But even if he didn't, it seems like somebody added this on, and somebody would not be adding to the Bible and it being accepted by everybody unless they were a prophet themselves. So we don't know who wrote this, but we're pretty sure it came after Moses' death. So here's what it talks about. It talks about Moses' death. He goes up on Mount Nebo, and he is shown the whole land, which is interesting. It's on the east side of the land. So if we're looking at a map here, imagine this is the Jordan River. Imagine this is the Mediterranean Sea. Mount Nebo is right here, and you can get up on that mountain, and you can see on a clear day all the way to the top of the land and to the bottom of the land. Because if you know how big the land of Israel is, it's not as big as like the state of California. It's like from LA County down to Camp Pendleton. I mean, it's not that big. It's sizable, but it's not like the biggest piece of land ever. So you're actually able to see on a very clear day, if you get up on a high mountain like Mount Nebo, you can see the bottom, you can see the top, and you can see all the way to the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. So Moses sees the land. God shows him the land, and it says when he died, he was 120 years old, but he didn't die because he was just so fragile and old. It says that his eye was undimmed and his vigor was unabated. He was 120 years old, but I mean, he had the energy of a 45-year-old. You probably know some people who are really old who have all the energy of a young person. Seems like Moses was like that. But here at the very end, very important, it says Joshua became the leader because Moses laid his hands on him. He was now going to be the leader of the people of Israel. But verse 10 says, "And there has not arisen a prophet since in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face." So that should bring us back to the prophecy of Deuteronomy 18, where Moses said there's going to be a prophet one day that's like me, who knows God face to face and can relay the message. This is why it's important about the timing. So I don't think this is a reference to Joshua. I don't think Joshua was that prophet. And I think it's very clear because he talks about how Joshua took the people, but Joshua wasn't that prophet. I don't think Samuel was that prophet. I don't think David was that prophet king. I don't think Isaiah was that prophet or Jeremiah was. I think this is pointing forward to Jesus Christ, because how often in the New Testament they quote Deuteronomy 18 and that promise that God is going to send someone to reveal God to the people. And that's what Jesus did exactly. So that's the end of the book of Deuteronomy. Remember, the key phrase from this book is do not forget. Don't forget God. And when you go into the land, don't forget. And that's a helpful reminder for us. Don't forget. And also, God's making all these promises and he's fulfilling them over time. So awesome. Thanks for reading the book of Deuteronomy with us. But we're not done this morning. We're turning to the book of Luke. We're studying this book, which is going to take us a while because the book of Luke is so long. In fact, chapter 1, we're actually spending 3 different days. So this is day 2 of reading Luke chapter 1. But we're going to start in verse 24, where it starts talking about how Gabriel goes to a city called Nazareth and talks to a lady named Mary. And now, I don't know how old you picture Mary being. A lot of people picture her being like 28 or 29 or 30 or however old you think people are when they have babies. But the reality is, she was probably much younger than that. Probably in her teens. She might have been as young as 14 or 15. We don't even know. Maybe we got some 16-year-old girl here that we're talking about. So she's a teenager at this point. Pretty clear about that. All the records in history say that people are getting married really young at this point, especially the girls. So she's probably a teenager at this point. And God speaks to her through this angel, and the promise is that she is going to bear a son, and this son is not going to be an ordinary son. It says that this son is going to be great. He shall be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord will give to him the throne of his father David. So not only is he going to be the Son of the Most High, which is a reference back to Daniel, I think, he's also going to be over the house of David. He's going to be the King of Kings. He's going to have this kingdom that David had, which was a grander kingdom than they had seen right here because the Romans were in charge. And obviously that wasn't so good for the Israelites. And there's a lot of questions about that, right? Because she's not been with anybody. She can't technically have a kid through anybody. So she asked that question, and Gabriel says, well, you're going to have a child through the Holy Spirit. And this is going to be a very unique birth. And then what happens later? Mary sings this song of praise. She starts talking to God, really, in this song, and she magnifies the Lord, or praises God. And one of the things she says here at the end, in verse 54, is, He has helped His servant Israel in remembrance of His mercy, as He spoke to our fathers, to Abraham and his offspring forever. The reason I bring that up is I think that ties us back to the book of Deuteronomy. Mary views this salvation plan connected back to the Old Testament. The problem for us sometimes is we view the salvation plan disconnected between the testaments. We need to realize that God's salvation plan in the Old and the New Testament is just working out the same big plan. And Mary connects it back, and we should connect it back too. That when God sends Jesus, what's happening is God is fulfilling His promises to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to Moses, to all of those people. God is fulfilling His promises. So I know that's one unified theme, but that's something to be grateful for, that God is so knowledgeable and so wise and so in control that He is working all things out according to His plan. So that's all we got for today's daily Bible reading. We'll see you back tomorrow for another one.